Hello, everybody, and welcome to the very first episode of Off the Top. With me, joining me for this amazing maiden voyage, two crewmates. First, Michael Weinberg. Michael, how are you?
I'm doing great, Anthony. Great to be here.
Awesome. And right next to him, across the table from me, is Carolina Mangru.
Yeah.
Guys.
You got it.
Welcome.
Thanks.
I'm so glad to have you. So glad to finally be here after all the work that the podcast team has put in and all of the trials and tribulations that we've gone through.
So true.
What's tribulations?
Lots of tribulations.
Lots of tribulations to get this first episode up and running. But the great listeners at home and the viewers at home, they don't have to know anything about that.
They don't.
No, we are perfect.
As perfect as can be.
Yeah, so welcome to the show. Very excited to be here. This is Off the Top. A little bit about ourselves. We are all students at the agency at UF. The UF stands for University of Florida, and the agency is, we like to describe ourselves as a strategic communications firm, a marketing, advertising, PR firm that is staffed by students, led by some faculty. We work with real clients and do real cool things.
Cool.
We make things happen. I'm a copywriter and the podcast lead, podcast host. Michael, what do you do?
I'm also a copywriter. I basically mess around with words constantly, even when I'm not told to.
Carolina, what do you do? What the heck do you do?
That's such a good question, actually. I have many roles, so I'm just going to kind of talk about it. So I'm a media supervisor. Let me not hit the microphone.
Damn good one at that.
Thank you. I supervise all the medias. I'm an account supervisor. And then on our comms team that manages all of our social media pages, I'm the current community management lead. And then next year I'll be taking over as comms supervisor.
Oh,
slay! Yeah.
All right. So I have this little spiel here that I'm gonna go over at the beginning of every episode. Eventually, it'll be like the back of my hand. Sometimes I'll probably forget how to do it. But I have it written down, and one day I'll have it memorized. But here we go. So, Off the Top is a podcast where students from the agency at UF discuss an eclectic set of topics for your and our entertainment and enrichment. Audio versions go up every other Friday. So, the Friday that you're listening to this on right now, or maybe not. Maybe you're listening to this in the future.
On like a Thursday.
You probably are listening to it in the future.
Well, yes.
From today.
But
on like a Wednesday,
Tuesday. Unless you're listening to it right now, in which case... Whoa.
That's some interstellar shit.
Wow.
Every other Friday, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. That's where you can get the audio version, or you can watch the video version on YouTube. Like if you're on YouTube, how you're doing right now or in the future, as we've discussed. If you like hearing us in your ear.
If you are like us.
If you like hearing us in your ear holes. Please make sure to give high ratings, subscribe, etc., etc. That's what keeps the mics and the lights on around here. Now, for the rest of the show, the way that this works, each one of us, like I mentioned in the little blurb that I had at the beginning, we each have our own topic, and they're topics in every episode will be anywhere from closely related to not related at all. Sometimes we talk about Russia, and sometimes we talk about Batman, sometimes we talk about important things, sometimes we talk about not important things, well, important things to us, frivolous things. Frivolous is a better word.
Frivolous is a word I do not know, but I've always heard it.
You don't know the word frivolous? I know the word frivolous.
It's one of those words where I feel like I know what it means just
but you don't.
By the way it sounds and the way it's used, but...
Well, your lexicon is growing now.
If you thought that I didn't know what lexicon meant, I actually do know that one.
Well, I expected.
I did not doubt.
Your
I did not doubt.
job is literally to use words.
Contrary to popular belief, I do not think that writers know more words. I believe that they're in constant search of new words, and therefore they do know words.
I will say, not to pat the backs of copywriters, but I think the conversation. Whenever I talk with you, I feel like there's less of
I'm scared.
there's less of a gap, I think, in the kinds of words that we use, whereas like I never hear other people use the kind of words that you do.
Copywriter supremacy.
Copywriter supremacy on the first episode.
I will say Carolina's definitely a copywriter.
I'm not a copywriter.
She is for all intents and purposes. So just keep that in mind.
The way that we are going to decide who goes first.
Oh.
In this pouch, in my sack, I have a bunch of dice. Okay. This is from the hit tabletop game Dungeons and Dragons.
Slay.
I have a history with this game. I used to play it quite a bit in high school. I no longer have time to do it, but I still have this set of dice now. If I can find
The
Is there a
remnants.
purple
the
one?
one that I want. There's a bunch of great dice. There's dice that are made of metal, and they like scratch your table when you throw them down. These are just made of, I don't know what these are, like some, I don't know, acrylic.
I just want to pick a pretty one.
They're all pretty, Carolina.
So I'm going to go with a 20-sided die. Okay. Now,
That's crazy.
there are 3 of us, so we need to figure out how we're going to do this. So
I picked number 11.
you pick number 11.
I don't know what numbers we're picking.
So we can pick a number.
The closest one to 11.
Closest one to...
Oh, never mind.
Sure.
Well, because each of us needs to...
We can do closest one to 11. We can all roll the dice. I was going to say...
Oh, one who rolls closest to... Okay.
Yeah. There we
That
go.
makes sense.
Closest one to 11.
If
Okay.
you hit 11, you win.
There you go, automatically. All right. I'm going to go first.
What is it?
5.
Oh, well.
Alrighty, here you go. 8 for Michael.
I'm literally going to get 11.
Carolina?
That's my luck.
What is that?
18.
18. So Michael
Ah.
is going first because
First.
8, that's 3. 18, that's 6.
That
And
is 7.
sorry, 7. Then so Michael, I'm a copywriter.
Yeah.
We don't do math here.
We don't.
Not me.
The agency is not math.
Not me
friendly.
also being a business major and
that's
struggling
true.
through accounting. Yes, what introduce your topic, Michael?
Yeah. So what I wanted to talk today about was this whole idea of nostalgia marketing / nostalgia in entertainment. So I'm talking movies, TV shows, even music, actually. It's always been around, nostalgia. Obviously, it's just a basic human emotion, but the use of it in marketing is prevalent more recently. You can see, like, for example, and this was talked about in an older thought leadership piece by Richard Forbes, Ryan Montoto, and Jacob Pasternak. They all wrote a nostalgia marketing
Where can
article.
people find that? Where can people find that?
They can't right
Oh,
now,
they
but they
can't.
will eventually when the blog is up and running on our agency
We're
website.
redesigning the website.
It is being redesigned, second iteration, so just be on the lookout for that. But yeah,
Looks great.
so we talked about it there, and they made some really cool points, analyzed some really cool ads. One of them was that Burger King recently redesigned / undesigned their logo back to their 70s logo, which is a really smart move because I think a lot of people hated their newer logo, and it's weird because you say their new logo, but it's actually their old logo.
Mm-hmm.
But there's things like that all around us. And this is my interesting point that I want to talk about is like, why do we think that it recurs? Like every 20 or so years we look back, and in the 90s, for example, there was the movie Dazed and Confused starring Matthew McConaughey, and
All
that
right.
yep,
All
and
right.
that movie took place in the 70s, the bicentennial of the 1776 construction of America. Yeah, that's what it was about.
Dude, you know your history. Look at you.
Right? Like,
wow.
I should have been an American history major.
Oh, dude.
But yeah, so that's something interesting. And then, once I also learned that it's called the aughts, the
Of course.
period
Yeah.
of
Yes.
2000 to 2009. I didn't know that. But yeah, in the aughts, we went back to the 80s. But that's another interesting point I also want to ask you guys about. Like, why has the 80s nostalgia kind of... Let's start with that. Why has the 80s nostalgia been used in the media continuously since, like, the aughts?
Well, I've got something just on the topic of nostalgia. So in fashion, there's something like, well, fashion is of course like cyclical, so everything comes back in trends every like 20 or 30 years. I think that definitely corresponds to like nostalgia in marketing, because as these like fashion trends are coming back and being repurposed, so are like different cultural phenomena of that time too, you know? That's all I had to say. I just wanted to bring that up first.
Interesting.
So you brought up fashion. Yeah. So fashion, I can't speak about fashion because, as you can see, I'm a dazzlingly fashionable individual. Not.
You got style.
But yeah, sure.
Take pride in yourself, King.
I'll style. Not AP style.
Oh no.
I can't help you there. I like AP style.
You like AP style?
I like having a style. The other styles confuse me. This is a very copyrighted.
Yeah, this is.
If it didn't,
I feel like out of place here.
Listen.
No, you won't.
We'll talk about the Oxford comma in another.
Oh,
episode.
I have a strong opinion about the Oxford comma. Bring me back.
Yeah, there we go.
Tap me in, coach.
There we go. So, yeah, I think the '80s are so powerful because that's like the height of late 20th century American just exceptionalism and consumerism. The '80s are just a booming time in history. In the 70s, full of stagflation, gas prices going up, cars going down in size because we can't afford the big cars anymore. And then as soon as we get into a time, at least this is all the United States. I can't speak to any other country, but as soon as we get out of that and we can have more things, then we just go all out. We get hair metal, we get all these big movies, we get all this stuff. So I think there's we look back fondly at that time where we can see us doing well, And if you think about the people who are growing up at that time, you have Gen Xers being teenagers at that time. Millennials are just being born. I think you mentioned the aughts was a big time for 80s nostalgia. I think aughts and even into the teens, 20 teens, a lot of
right.
Yeah,
and that's my point. So usually, and I say the aughts. I don't really have like evidence to actually back that up, but usually
no sources for this podcast.
There are 20-year gaps between each like nostalgic period. So for example, in the 70s, people were like really obsessed with the 50s and the 60s. Take American Graffiti, that George Lucas film, 73, I think. That was based on the 60s, I think, but it influenced shows like, for example, Happy Days, which is, and like you got Grease, which is also in the 70s. But both of those pieces of entertainment are like, they're pulling from the 50s because there's like some nostalgia. You got like people, missing a time that they weren't even a part of, which is really, it's a really interesting phenomenon. Like people are missing a time. Like we won't say it a lot, but, and when we do, it's cringy. I mean, people will say really dumb shit like, oh, God, I was born in the wrong generation.
Oh, dude, I used to say that all the time. I used to say, I think that comes from I think that part of that too comes with just not enjoying the kind of environment that we're in. Like I think social media, and the internet, contributes to that because.
Sorry, you go.
Yeah, no, because I know whenever I would say that in the past, I don't say that anymore because I don't believe. Obviously, everybody was born exactly when they had to be born, right?
Sure.
But when I used to say that, that came from a place of like, man, I wish for a time when things were, everything's so connected right now. Everything is amplified because of posts and this, and there's no room to grow and make mistakes because everything that you post on Instagram or Twitter is just going to be dug up by somebody later on, and like you can't fool around. And I hear people say, "Oh man, I'm glad I didn't have social media when I was growing up in the '70s because I would be toast." So I mean,
you shouldn't be around those people. Just by the way.
Why do you say that?
I don't know. I think people who say that have they really shouldn't be saying the things that they are saying on the internet. I think there's a difference between making a tasteless joke versus pretty hateful things in the form of jokes. Does that make sense?
I think you're casting a.
I don't know.
I think you're casting a wide net there.
Maybe I am, but I just feel like there's a lot that's, and if we want to tie it back to like nostalgia, like there's a lot that's overlooked by these time periods. Like people are they're like the 70s, for example.
Right.
I mean, there's a lot of horrible things that happen in every decade that we don't think about and we don't talk about.
Everything has its...
and everybody has their own opinions about the time period. I mean, there's a lot of things that are being said now that like 20 years from now, kids are not gonna see it. They're just gonna see like Megan Thee Stallion and like all a bunch of culture points that are like very important and like fun, but they're not going to see all the horrible underlying things.
But when you're like stuck in like your current day-to-day life, it's easy to like get a full scope of what's going on, like the negative parts as well as the good parts. But like I think just in like a psychological thing, you're more likely to remember like good memories that happened to you. So always like when you look back, you're looking back on the good memories, like oh my gosh, you tend to romanticize the past. Everyone does it, it's like that one Office quote that they did like the last season. He's like, oh, you never really know you're in the good times until they've already passed.
I love that quote, by the way. I love that quote, but I think I take that as a positive thing. I when I see, because over romanticizing does exist, and it's really easy for that to happen, and that clouds a lot of things. I am all for a holistic view of history, because everything happens in a context. And everything has to be taken for what it is. You can't cover anything up. You have to speak like how it was and make a good to be able to take good lessons from that. But from an individual experience, from an individual perspective, I take that kind of quote as hope for when I'm going through a tough thing. If I'm going through something tough right now, all the hard work that we do, when the times when we're grinding to get something done, I could take solace in the fact that, like in the future, I'm going to remember the good times are what are going to stick out. And I think also, that it's saying cherish what you have right now, cherish what you have right now, because it's going to go. So remember, don't, spend time living the good old days, and don't, waste time reminiscing on them. Or don't keep yourself in the trap of not having experienced the good days when they happened. And to tie that to brands, trying to take that reel
like an agency member would,
reel it back in, boys, reel her in. When Burger King is to go back to Burger King is going back to their old logo, then they're relying on that over romanticization. They're tapping into that good old days energy that even a lot of people our age have. Like we sometimes think about times that we didn't even live in as the good old days because for whatever reason, whether it be outside external forces or how we feel about the times that we're doing right now. So brands doing that they realize that there's power and value in hearkening back to times past.
And you brought up something that made me think of. I just thought of The Goonies, for example. I know that that's a movie my sister watched when she was younger, and I recently saw it because I never saw it in its entirety.
You saw it?
Never saw it in its entirety.
I've never seen it.
Miss Mangru.
You guys have to watch Goonies. Come on.
It's Guy, because I did see it in the summer of 2021.
Guys, I don't think Michael has ever seen The Goonies.
Anyways,
Michael, you need to watch The Goonies.
So The Goonies is a fantastic film. It's very 80s-like, with the music and just the humor. And I just feel like it gets complicated for like what defines the nostalgia for someone, like a consumer segment, because, for example, that might be nostalgic for my sister who was born in 1998, but it also is nostalgic for consumers probably who were teens in that era, who probably also would enjoy a movie like that, or kids in that era, so they're what, like in their 40s or 50s. So it's like, okay, now you have two completely or multiple generations tied to one decade. and so it kind of gets like complicated, and like you don't know like where that overlap. Do you guys?
No, I definitely get what you're
You know what I'm
saying,
saying?
because I'm definitely a part of that like wrong generation thing. Like I grew up watching The Muppet Show, which was from the 70s, and I have a heavy nostalgia like for the Muppets. Like they hold such a special place in my heart. Yet that is not like I am not their target demographic. Same with like Saved by the Bell. Like I watched Saved by the Bell a lot as a little kid in the 2000s, which is like
The aughts.
the aughts,
The aughts.
as they're called. Like I just
As you
watched a
ought
bunch
to
of
call 'em.
old like movies and TV shows that I don't think were designed for me or like were past my time.
Yeah, and nostalgia. I mean, nostalgia is just. I love that you brought up nostalgia for this first episode, because I think I'm going to be touching on. I think nostalgia is going to be brought up many times in the run of this show, because I'm a deeply nostalgic person,
Oh,
and
me
like
too.
nostalgia. You know, I think everybody's a deeply nostalgic person. Just
Is that why you like Christmas songs?
Yeah.
Christmas songs are just joyful.
No, I
Michael.
like
Do
Christmas
you hate
songs.
Joy?
No, I love joy. I just feel like Anthony has an unusual / beautiful proclivity to these. I think I used that word correctly.
I don't
To
know.
Christmas songs. Don't you have like? Isn't your
Imagine if
Spotify
you're totally
Wrapped?
wrong.
So
it
you
could
just
be,
made
but
up
isn't
this
like
thing about
Santa
me.
on your top?
So here's the thing.
5 artists?
Here's the thing about Spotify Wrapped. Spotify Wrapped, they stopped taking data before the time of the year when I heavily listen to Christmas
Yeah.
music. So when my Spotify Wrapped comes out, it's like, oh, your top song was Nights on Broadway by the Bee Gees. I'm like,
Oh,
okay.
Bee Gees, mad respect.
I friggin' love the Bee Gees.
I love the Bee Gees. This is a
as
Bee
well.
Gees stand table, and I'm very happy about it. Thank you.
Blaming it all on the Nights on Broadway.
Can we have a Bee Gees
love
discussion?
song.
I'm changing my topic.
Oh, dude.
Wait, that's nostalgic. Look at us bonding over a '70s group.
Yeah.
But if you look at third-party websites that take all your Spotify data, yeah, that's much more accurate. What you're referring to is that my top 10 most listened to songs of all time are all from the Michael Bublé Christmas album. And it is not close. It's not close.
So what? The 11th?
It's not. I think you have to go to the 18th song to get a song that is not a Christmas song.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
Because it's on repetitiveness, and when it's November, December / the last week of
that's on.
the last week of October, and a little bit into January, and sometimes in July,
It's beginning to look a lot like
that is the
Don't
most listened. That is
start
the
'em
most
up.
listened to song. That is my most listened to song. That song is like when
Oh my
when
God.
when
Michael
Mi-
Bubble just does such a good job on that one.
when
specifically.
Michael's voice,
Not your Michael.
not this Michael,
the Michael with a glorious voice.
You know what?
when Mr. Bublé
Mr. Bubble.
comes on and it drops, it's like heart aflutter. It's
Yeah.
time. It's time. So yeah, why do I like?
Pop open a bottle of bubble.
Oh, dude,
Yeah.
Bubbly.
pop open some of the bubbly for Bublé.
Yeah.
The booble.
And yeah, I mean, Christmas is just inherently nostalgic, because some of the for me some of the happiest times are related to Christmas, but nostalgia isn't just based on some set period of time. It's just nostalgia is simply like it's for days that are gone. And nostalgia, I think what's beautiful about nostalgia is there's pain in nostalgia.
Yes.
The Greek base of nostalgia is it is about pain, the pain for what cannot come again.
Oh shit.
That is no, it's there's a great Mad Men episode about this. One of my favorite scenes from Mad Men, probably my favorite scene from Mad Men, is when he pitches the Kodak carousel to the client, and he talks all about nostalgia, and it is a wonderful scene. Watch it, YouTube, if you haven't seen it at home. Watch that.
I haven't. I'm a fake advertising major.
Dude.
I am also a fake. It's on a sticky note. I swear to
I
you.
know. Like I know I need to watch it.
It's on a sticky note on
but-
my desk. It says watch Mad Men.
Yeah.
It also says play Legend of Zelda.
For the
because-
love of God, watch Mad Men, please.
Yeah.
So he talks about this, and yeah, and it's bittersweet. It's bittersweet, and so it's not just about time. It's not about the 80s. It's not about the set. It's not about a specific decade. It's about an experience that happened, and you can no longer it can no longer happen again the way that it passed. So when you're nostalgic for the Muppets, you're not nostalgic about the 70s. You're nostalgic about this time in your life when all you had to worry about was catching the next Muppets episode.
So true.
And it's about the environment that you were in, the smells of the kitchen or the smells of your house, the sights that were happening, because that the Muppets are just a vehicle for where you were.
My heart is like swelling right now. You can't use me as an example. I'm literally already I'm like, oh my gosh, I love them.
So like it's I think when we're talking about why are we so nostalgic about the 80s, the 80s are unique because the properties that came about in the 80s are massive, and they're so massive that they're still around today. Yeah. Star Wars started in 77, but it also took place in the 80s. That's huge. Ghostbusters, there was just another movie. That's huge.
A lot of blockbusters.
Yeah, a lot of Spielberg.
Jaws,
all that stuff.
Jaws was 75.
Well, 70, but it's I still group it with like the classics of that like time.
But it's true, and I think though. But as you were talking, I was like, you said Christmas being nostalgic for you. It's nostalgic apparently to Coca-Cola, because Coca-Cola uses polar bears and Santa, and you said Mad Men, which takes place in the 60s, I believe. Yeah. The golden age of advertising or whatever, as they shove down your throat as an advertising student.
Of golden age of Madison Avenue, at least.
Yeah. So it's just crazy that, our culture is almost entirely set on not making anything new.
I have so much to say about that.
Oh, that kind of even ties into my topic.
Reboot after reboot.
It's so much to say.
It's sequel after sequel. I'm thinking Scream. Scream is just a parody on older movies. And then each sequel after that is builds off the last one. Wait, I mean, obviously, as a sequel does. Yeah. But
this sequel's completely different.
But it's like I'm telling you, it's like a blueprint of the 1996 version, and it's like. That's everything these days, and it's not a bad thing. It's just I think it's an interesting phenomenon that humans seem to not like to let go because of this, and it's painful, but yet we do it anyway. Thoughts?
I think it's definitely heading in a bad direction. This kind of also ties into my topic because I am talking about IP and kind of that infiltration within like the movie industry, but I definitely think that like original films are getting less of a time to shine because like. Especially in a time of like streaming and like taking a risk on new things, like businesses don't really want to take a risk on like a new story with original people that doesn't have like an all-star cast behind it to promote it. And so it's like, it's really taking away from like indie creators or like stories from like people with like lesser heard voices, and like, honestly, sometimes I don't need to hear these stream stories like retold over and over and over again. I think it like makes it sometimes like it takes away from the specialness of the story when it is just drawn out. Like, I don't know. I feel like there's something beautiful about something having like an end. I think whether that's an ambiguous end or it's a definitive like end, this is how it like went. Like, I think that's very like meaningful in the artistic telling of a story. And I feel like, I don't know. I feel like people like just corporations are taking advantage and exploiting like the artistic creativity in storytelling.
I think you nailed it.
I do too.
Yeah, I have very nuanced and deep views on this exact topic. When I watched The Batman with my brothers. In fact, actually, the car ride home was it started with, oh man, that was a really good movie, and then it turned into me ranting to my brothers about how there's nothing new anymore. And so I won't give the whole spiel because for the interest of a time and just it'll distract too much maybe from the topic at hand. But yeah, there's an opportunity cost when it comes to choosing when producers and companies choosing what to fund and what to produce. And I'm going to use Star Wars as an example because I am as I like to call it, a disenfranchised Star Wars fan. Star Wars is massive, and it's not owned by Disney. Bought for $4 billion, which in today is a cheap deal. They got a deal on Star Wars, which is crazy. Star Wars used to mean the story of the Skywalkers. It used to mean a dirty, grungy family soap opera about this family that happened to take place in a space war, in a Star War,
if you will. To coin a phrase, you know.
Yes, of course. Now it is so wide, it's so massive that it really, to say I'm a Star Wars fan or I love Star Wars doesn't mean anything
Exactly.
anymore. No, like, no, what do you like? Because me, if you want to know my likes of Star Wars, I'm an original trilogy guy. I love the original trilogy, and the prequels, don't like them. Hate them.
I love the memes of the prequels.
The sequels, hate them. The sequels, not a fan of the sequels. Mandalorian, haven't watched Mandalorian, and I'm not going to. Sorry, bro. My brother always tells me to watch Mandalorian. It's like, so it keeps, just to kind of broaden it out to apply to other things. When you expand something out so much, then the original brand loses meaning. There's a brand essence that you build from the beginning, and then if you keep expanding it out with no care to how everything ties into itself, then you end up with something that is just watered down and diluted and doesn't mean anything. And when it comes to making new things, well, if we just keep rehashing the old things, rehashing old properties, rehashing old ideas, rehashing old design choices, then what you're losing out on is you're putting your creatives on old ideas and just making them better. I love the Batman, and a lot of people love Mandalorian, and everybody liked Spider-Man, which is like the epitome of the problem that we're talking about. So there's good things and there's bad things. That's why I said, the nuanced views, like there's exceptions, right? There's ways to make old things good. There's high quality things, but we can't deny that us, like our generation, we're living in a time where the biggest things are things that existed 30 to 40 years ago. And there is no new Star Wars. There is no new Ghostbusters. There's no new any of that. It's just the same old things. And when we have Burger King going back to...
Bringing it all back.
When we have Burger King going back to the 70s design choice, well, hey, how about we make a 2020s design thing? How about instead of the trends of the 2020s being... the 90s and some things and 70s and other things, how about it's something that's ours, that belongs to us?
Yeah, I love this topic, and I fully agree with the both of you. Unfortunately, I just don't think that. I think on a broader scale, and I'm not saying this is what I wish for anything, but I feel like consumers crave the nostalgia, and that's it's obvious because that's what's selling. And I agree. I think
market speaks.
I feel like it just gets watered down, sequel after sequel if we're talking about just movies, but in general it's just, and I won't lie, I like whenever I hear, because one of the topics or one of the talking points that I was researching, like for example The Weeknd's newest album, I think it's very 80s.
It was a good album,
and it's good, and that's the problem, is that we just people who
it's
like
hard to balance.
It's like you hear something that's good, or you see something that's good, and you're like, oh my god, Stranger Things, that's so good, it's the 80s, it's awesome, and it's like, well, fuck, now we're back in the same loop, and we can't get out of it. And I'm hearing people talk about like Y2K stuff more often, which follows that 20-year rule. By the way, I also just learned what Y2K meant like maybe a week ago.
What the fuck?
Michael?
I know, I understand. I don't...
What do you...
Yeah.
Michael.
Angel, cut that part out.
No. Angel, keep that in, Angel.
Not Angel. No.
Anyway. Yeah. So it's interesting that we can have this dichotomy of like, yes, we want original stuff. Whenever I'm at Celebration Point, that's the the area with the Regal movie theater in Gainesville, the really nice theater. It has the giant movie posters in these beautiful colors. I remember walking down a couple of years ago, just seeing sequel reboot. Oh my god, original movie. Just kidding. It's another reboot. It's Dumbo. It's not even a reboot. It's just a retelling.
Those piss me off.
In live action. It's Dumbo. It's you got Mulan, you have
Aladdin,
Scream,
Lion King.
I mean, obviously
those
Disney.
Those are the most egregious. The live action remakes, they weren't even good.
It's the bad thing is that, and then you got that where it's like nostalgia done wrong, like it, because it loses all the elements that you liked.
Yeah.
You know, it's just I don't know. It's like a veneer over the original thing, and it just has no emotion. But yeah, I think that's it's very interesting that we all like to go back to quote unquote simpler times. They're not simpler.
I don't know. I think like going back to your thing about like pain and like nostalgia being rooted in pain. I think when we feel pain, a natural like response is to go back to things that comfort us. I know like personally, like during quarantine, a lot of the things that I did, like I went back and I rewatched a bunch of TV shows that I used to love as a kid. Like I think like by that tragedy, we are therefore like reinforcing nostalgia into our culture, into our like art, I guess. So like I don't think it's ever gonna like go away or lessen.
And you just reminded me, I had never watched Avatar: The Last Airbender. I just never did as a kid, but I watched it once it came on Netflix, and that gave me nostalgia, even though I never watched it. And it's just interesting that you can feel, like we talked about, like something, you can feel that pain and like longing for a time when you didn't even experience it. You know, like I guess it's, you know, of course I always saw, you know, the imagery around that show growing up, but I never had that emotional connection, and I really enjoyed that show probably because of it, you know, the nostalgia. So
Any closing comments on this topic before we move on?
I don't know. Just nostalgia is rooted in like longing and for like a human connection, you know, for like feeling something, you know. It's the point of being alive. That's it.
Michael?
Just come up with something new, man. Like I don't
do something original.
I don't know. Just come up with something new. That's all I'll say.
I think I'll close this with plugging video games, because video games have I'm a big video game guy. I love them. Want to work in them. In the AAA end, in the higher end, same kind of issue happening. You know, I mean, it's a little bit different because when you're dealing with older video games, you're dealing with playability and access. You know, it's not like movies where, you know, anybody, you know, you interface with movies all the same way. You watch them. Games, you have to play them in different ways. So PlayStation 1 games don't play the same as PlayStation 5 games. So it's important to go back and remake them and import them, whatever. But there's also, much to my enjoyment, there's a huge indie scene that's growing in games. It's been growing for a while. So if you want new things, if you want to experience people creating new things all the time and things that are fun, video games, check those out at home, and you too as well. Those are, yeah. So I believe I'm going next. That is what that was because you were 8, I was 5.
I was 18.
18. You're 7 away from 11. I'm 6 away from 11.
Slay.
Okay.
Just missed the bar.
So
save the best for last. Okay.
I think I like how the topics I think fell out. I think because mine's gonna be a pretty light one, but it's kind of continuing the same conversation that we were just talking about. So I want to talk about.
So we got a theme.
So I want to talk about brands that are relevant to some cultures, but not known to other cultures. And I'm going to set this up. I was looking. Well, it's a lot of things that made me think about this, but I think the most entertaining thing, I was with my roommate, and we were just looking up restaurants around the world. We were going on Google Maps and just, what are the restaurants in Kyrgyzstan? What are the restaurants in Algeria, in Tunisia, in whatever? And so we go to the Philippines, and we find this restaurant called Mr. Bob's American Restaurant, I believe it's called. And it's like faux American food. They have like reviews on there. They have pictures on there. It actually used to be a Cuban restaurant before it was changed to Mr. Bob's. So as a Cuban, I thought, wow, you really can't go far, even on the other side of the world.
Sounds like a lot of Cuban restaurants.
We're still there. So I think, man, like we have an idea of, you know, what American food means or whatever it is, and they have a different idea of what that means. And on top of that, you know, I'm just thinking about, you know, like my you know, roots, you know, being from Southwest Florida. I mean, we just talked about CenturyLink earlier, right? And that's a brand to me that is everywhere. That's relevant. But you guys didn't know what that meant. Angel, being from Southwest Florida, she knew exactly what I was talking about. Cox.
What can we say about it?
So some brands. So I'll lead with two brands. One that I think maybe you guys might relate to a little bit. Where are you guys from, by the way?
I'm from South Florida, Pembroke Pines.
I am from kind of like Central Florida, but on like the East Coast. I'm by the Kennedy Space Center.
Oh, okay. So you're like the Satellite Beach
Melbourne
area.
She's from Melbourne.
I am from Melbourne.
So you might have more relation to this. So, have you ever been to Presidente Supermarket?
No, I actually haven't. So I looked it up and I was like, what the hell is this? Because there's another one called Sedanos.
Yes. Sedanos is the bigger one. That's a little bit more well known.
So no, I haven't heard of Presidente before.
So Presidente and Sedanos, they're two supermarket chains that I've never seen outside of Miami. Ever. But in Miami, they're everywhere. Well, Sedanos is at least. I don't know. Presidente is a little bit smaller. And to me, I mean, those that I think I see that and I think that's Miami, and I have a whole context to think about these two stores. In Presidente, I have a negative connotation with because it's always dirty. It smells like cleaning products.
Wow.
It's not.
Go
No.
off, sis.
No.
Presidente CEO is gonna come for you. I hope he's not listening.
The
man.
president of Presidente is gonna come over here. What is he gonna do?
Presidente, I'm going to set a precedente. I'm just going to tell you. You like that one?
Jesus. Let him try to get his commercials on Cox.
Oh, we're here all night. All night.
And another one. You might relate to this. You ever been to El Primo's, Angel? You remember El Primo's Pizza and Wings? Any of you? Dude,
No.
El Primo's Pizza and Wings. I used to think that it was everywhere. Because what I know, I was a little shit. I didn't know anything. But then I talked to somebody who's not from where I'm from, and I mentioned we were talking about our favorite pizzas, and pizza place. I was like, I think El Primo's Pizza and Wings is like my favorite chain pizza, and they were like, "What is that?" I'm like, "You don't know what that is?" I looked it up, and El Primo's only has 6 locations.
What?
6 locations in Naples, Florida, and Fort Myers, and that's it. And to me, and that blew my mind because I see El Primo's is. It's everywhere. Like you hear the ads on the radio, you see the commercials on TV. You get every time we do the coupon book fundraisers at school, El Primo's, they're always in there, and their pizza is bomb. And like every like at Little League, like at Little League, at like like normal celebrations, we always got Little Caesars. But when we won important games, bro. El Primo's is where we are.
High quality shit right
Putting
there.
out the big bucks for El Primo.
Dude, let's
Big
go.
boy.
So to me, like El Primo's carries like a significant weight with me, and to me, I'm interested to get your guys' take on this. Is that when I find out, this brand is only available where I'm from, and it's this good, I take immense pride in that. Like now that I know that El Primo's only has 6 locations in Naples and in Fort Myers. I'm like, 239 represent. If you ever talk shit about El Primo's, I'm coming after you.
What's interesting though is like to your point though, like I wonder like Presidente, even if you're from Miami, the thing is, what I'm about to say is, because if you're from Miami, chances are you're Hispanic. Like chances are.
You're just drawing from population data, Michael. Don't feel bad about that.
Correct. I'm saying like chances are you're Hispanic.
The numbers speak. Don't feel bad about that.
No, I'm not feeling bad about that. I'm not feeling bad about anything. I'm just saying that places like Presidente and Sedanos, obviously somebody in say Kansas isn't gonna know about it for 2 reasons.
One to hail.
I think one reason is they they don't have a location, obviously,
Right.
there. So that's the most obvious reason. So there's like regional brands like Pollo Tropical, another
Wait, that's
Hispan-
regional?
Yeah, apparently it's regional. I didn't know that.
What?
It's crazy.
No,
There's
you're
people out there
lying.
who haven't had a Tropa Chop.
That Tropic Couple has saved my life.
But I think if I'm wrong, please obviously correct me.
Oh, I
Carolina.
will.
We're gonna get somebody from Kansas and be like, "There's a Tropa Chop right down my street."
But that might be just the one, and they might be like fishing it out of the tornado,
Tornado.
The Troppy Chop's kind of like swirling around, and they're like,
I
you can't see me, but I'm like reeling it in.
I blew my roommate's mind when I told him that Publix isn't available. Across the country.
But that's becoming a thing that is like, but see, I think what's interesting about your topic is we're talking about like cultural, not regional brands, because like, for example, I talked to one of my, I have a Muslim friend, and I'm sure this brand isn't regional. It's more cultural. It's I don't want to like butcher the pronunciation, but it's like Shan Masala or whatever.
Oh my god.
It's a brand of
What?
Pollo Tropical is regional. Sorry, like
Yeah.
my mind is being blown.
What do you know? What do you know? That Troppy Chop is not in Kansas.
Think about the fact that
And then they said they have 32 franchise locations throughout the Caribbean, Central America, South America, Puerto Rico, and St. Croix.
Oh, I didn't know that though.
But they're only throughout Florida. What is that?
That is interesting.
think about the fact that our friends in Boulder, Colorado, have never had a Tropa Chop or a pub sub.
Now that's a crime.
That may not be true, of course.
I mean, they could have just been out here on vacation.
Could have
been
spent
like,
here,
Well, they didn't have it until they came to the great sunny state of Florida.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
That's true. I hear they eat moose there. I'm not even kidding. I'm not even kidding.
In Colorado?
Yeah, I'm not kidding.
Sources?
A friend. It's anecdotal.
Guys,
all I know.
Trust me, I know someone.
I know.
Source, trust me,
I
bro.
know a guy, and if you're listening, which he probably isn't, he said, and let me tell you, this was in Naples, Florida, your hometown.
Okay.
Naples,
He was talking to some Coloradans, Coloradans,
Colorado.
Colorado.
Coloradis, and they apparently mentioned eating moose. But also interestingly, in Australia, they eat kangaroo. I don't know if you knew that. As
Yeah,
well.
of course.
No, not of course.
Of course.
I'm sorry. You just imagine like in Madagascar, they just eat lemur because that's the only place you can find them.
Madagascar is not Australia.
No, but they're both island nations that sport one
Sport.
animal that cannot be found anywhere else in the world. And this relates because
Michael-
Sedano's.
I'm from Florida and I've eaten alligators, so I'll assume.
Yeah, but Louisiana also exists.
Okay, they probably people in Louisiana probably They definitely.
No, they
eat
do. They
alligator.
do. I don't even know what my point with that was. I'm
Wait,
just
but when you
saying.
bring up Louisiana, I don't know why, but I think it's really interesting that like certain brandings have branding for certain regions, yet they're known like on a national scale. Like I'm just
Example, please.
Are you
Like,
thinking
it's
about
like
Popeyes?
I'm thinking about Popeyes. 'cause it's-
Popeyes is
fast.
Are you saying because it started inLouisiana? Is that
and
why?
now it's like gone to like.
Did it start in Louisiana?
I don't know if
If it didn't start in Louisiana, I
but their
like,
branding is all centered around. Oh,
Ah,
it's
but I have a
Louisiana.
good-
like
I
that's
have
interesting.
I have an interest. Well, I don't know if this relates at all, but did you guys know that Outback started in Tampa, and it?
And it's just Australian dining. It's
like,
off.
I didn't know that.
On the Bobby.
I don't even
guess.
know what I'm saying. Like I don't even know what the point is there. It's just crazy that.
These
It's weird.
a lot when it comes to food businesses like that. I mean, those big chains, they're run mostly by businessmen, not chefs who are like. Okay, I don't know. Maybe the guy who started Outback was, from Australia, and he wanted to bring
Passionate about grilling.
he wanted to bring the shrimp on the bobby to the Americans,
to the Outback.
to the Yankees.
They
I
I
love onions, and I got a blooming onion, and because I thought,
Onion.
I can eat this all on my own. Fried onion, hell yeah, and it was horrible. I hated it.
Unpopular opinion.
I hated it. I hated it. Maybe it was because I was the only one eating it.
I went to the Outback for my birthday,
You did?
and it was delicious. And no, I had never been there before, and I had a bloomin' onion, and it was pretty good.
Slay.
So I don't know what you had. Maybe you had like a bloomin' detritus or something.
Detritus.
I-
Detritus?
I,
What's a detritus?
it's not what is a detritus. It's what is detritus. It's like debris.
Okay.
Debris.
It felt like the right word.
Okay, Michael.
Moment. of copywriting.
So, do you guys have? And yeah, I started off like with talking about cultural, but I mean, cultural, regional. I mean, it's the same idea. Brands that you know and have a lot of experience with, but that you're surprised that others don't have experiences with. Carolina just had her mind blown about Pollo Tropical. Is there anything else? I mean, what do you guys? What are some of the things for you? What are your guys' Il Primo's pizza?
Well, I have two more that I was talking about earlier today, but I was on the receiving end of this. So I went to Texas to go visit my friend for a music festival, and I was just shocked about how rich the culture is around H-E-B supermarkets. Like, it is insane. H-E-B is just this giant supermarket chain. And, like, sure, they have, like, other stores like Publix or Kroger or whatever you may prefer. But, like, H-E-B is, like, their store. And, like, they're such a... Like, I don't know. They have this mascot, and it's just a paper bag full of groceries, and his name is the H-E Buddy. And the mascot, he stands outside the store sometimes, and, like, my friend's telling me, he's like, oh, he goes to, like, all the local community events. He'll show up to, like, football games. And, like, they have this, like... Like, there's such a rich culture. I was so shocked when I walked in that when I walked in that H-E-B. I was like, but. And, like... Because apparently it's just everywhere. And I was like, why have I never even heard about it? Like, I don't know. It was really surprising.
It's pretty insane. I mean, there's like... But, I mean, this is like on a smaller level. I guess, like, there's no way that you guys have heard of Sal's Pizza. Sal's...
Probably not.
I've heard of Sal from Practical Jokers.
Oh, good Sal. Good
That's
Sal.
Good Sal.
Completely different Sal, but I'm sure he's a good Sal. But also Las Vegas Cuban food.
Las Vegas Cuban food?
Yeah, it's called Las Vegas. And it's I don't know, it's a chain down in South Florida, but I don't know like what the parameters are. It's like there's 3 of them, but like Sal's as well is like one of the ones that I guess I kind of assumed there was a lot of them because there was more than 2. Mm-hmm. But you know, it's not. But I think that's just regional, you know, like local chain. I mean, Relish Burgers, shout out to very delicious.
They make a pretty good burger.
Big tasty burgers.
This H-E-B mascot is
horrifying.
Is an eldritch creature.
I know.
This is
like, it's insane. And
Anthony's smiling at me like I know what that means.
But they have like a currency for children.
Dude,
they can get like HE bucks, and then they can spend it in the store and buy things. It's like a whole like society within the HEB. It is insane. And
it's grocery dystopia.
This is the oh my god, the HEB metaverse is gonna pop off.
I know.
Let me tell you what I see. There's this picture that I'm looking at right now. I'll show it to you guys, and the audience is not gonna be able to see it. But just, look at him. This horrible cat.
Why is the cat in the hat there?
Look at the cat in the man in the cat in the hat costume.
If you're listening at home,
Buddy.
Please look up a picture of HE Buddy. H-E-Buddy. Buddy. You need to see this guy.
He's not even look. He's like his eyes are pointing in 2 different directions.
I just don't like that he has a beak. Like
beak.
There's like
he doesn't have a beak.
Like he doesn't have a. Okay, show me the picture again.
He has that's his mouth.
No. See, that's not what he looked like. You gotta find the graphic one of him. I don't know why we don't have HE Buddy. I don't know why I've never.
It seems like it would be a weird Florida thing that we would hop onto because like.
Buc-ee's is.
Buc-ee's.
Who the hell's Bucky?
Buc-ee's.
Oh my! I just quoted Marvel like without like who the hell's Bucky? Sorry guys.
Bucky.
Who's Bucky?
Buc-ee's.
Who's Bucky's?
Buc-ee's. It's a
BUC-EE''S.
Yes,
it's
okay.
a local gas station. It's a southern gas station chain.
It's a Walmart. It's a Walmart in the middle of nowhere.
Buc-ee's.
Yes, a lot of people call it Busey.
National treasure.
I've seen this. I remember seeing this.
You know Bucky.
I think I saw this on like a road trip, and I was like, "Yep, I'm not in Florida anymore."
Exactly.
Actually, contrary to popular belief, there are some in the Panhandle.
Well, there's one in St. Augustine too.
Might as well not be Florida.
That is true. What?
There's one in St. Augustine. Me and Mackenzie.
St. Augustine.
Yeah, me and Mackenzie were planning on going to a road trip to go to Buc-ee's. So on the way to St. Augustine, we weren't going just for Buc-ee's.
Buc-ee's.
That beaver, damn.
I want to take a picture with him. He looks so cute.
Does he also come out and give money to children?
No, it's just a statue.
It's just a statue.
A statue of a cute little beaver, and he's
he's not little.
I mean, it's a huge statue.
That boy is plump and big.
Stout lad.
He's basically like a money bag with a.
Oh my
I don't know. Like I just imagine
But
like
Bucky's
that shape.
branding in southern Georgia, I love their billboards. That I will say.
It says "nice to pee you," because they have
Excuse me?
They have really nice bathrooms apparently.
Yeah.
Not apparently. I went there. It's huge.
There's one that says "I like big Bucky's and I cannot lie." I love the references. They're like very like fun, like oh ha ha, come to Bucky's. Like I don't know how to describe it, but they're really funny.
So, for the sake of all the CEOs of the regional brands that are listening to this podcast right now,
All of them.
All's negative 2 of them.
In-
They're close friends of the pod.
including my friend, the presidente of Presidente Supermarkets.
Presidente.
What do you think? Is this is it an advantage to be this status as a regional or close cultural brand? Is it an advantage? How can they take advantage of that? Like, what's the strategy for them to hone in on the people around them?
I think it can be taken as an advantage because you have such like a really good opportunity to connect with like local audiences within that region rather than being like, oh, I have to like focus communications on like a national scale. I can hone in on something regional and specific that like everyone in this like area can relate to. Like, I don't know, I think of like Florida. We all live surrounded by water. We're at the beach. Like a lot of us have lived close to beaches, you know? So I think that's something that we can relate to that someone say in like Kansas cannot relate to. And so I think like there's a lot of like unique opportunities for local brands to kind of like seize those opportunities, I guess.
Yeah, I think that and it kind of goes back to what we were talking about, like just expanding something that maybe shouldn't be expanded, even if it's successful. Like, it depends, like, from whose perspective, of course. Like, obviously, a brand is, like, sole goal is to just get bigger and make more money.
Right.
You know, like,
right.
But from the consumer's perspective, like, we probably wouldn't want Publix to reach out past Publix. Or
No,
past,
that's mine.
past
Publix
Florida.
is mine.
Right. Like, I don't know. There's something about, like, that there's a community, you know, around, like, everybody walks into Publix, you know, there's a lot of memes on Twitter. They're like, oh, this isn't my Publix, because that's the type of relationship we have with Publix. It's like a personal one where it's like almost like, oh, this is like our home kind of, because we're there so often, you know, every week or so we go to the same place to get our food. But, you know, and you talked about El Primo's, like, it feels like it's a national thing, but it's not. And that's what's important. If it was national, then it would kind of like lose its, I don't know, like specialness. I feel like the charm comes with building the community of which you like. That's where it started with your brand. And I feel like you build such a strong connection, such strong loyalty, and then all the generations that come after that also experience that. And so I feel like if you're focusing on expanding, you know, past your regional limits, I don't know, I feel like you're going to start losing those like really strong connections, and then you become something completely different, which is what you were talking about with Star Wars in our past topic.
Tying it all together, connecting the dots.
Time is an illusion. I think that's a good place to. I think that's a good thing to close on with this topic is, brands want to grow, companies want to grow. Mr. Presidente wants Cletus in Kansas to go to a Presidente supermarket and buy his shitty products.
I actually met a Cletus in Alaska once. Just fun anecdote.
That was so relevant, Michael.
A little
Fucking
bit.
crazy.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. But next topic.
But for the hold on
He has
Sorry.
final thoughts.
yeah,
Cut that out, Angel. Fuck.
No, we're just
No, keep that in, Angel.
Leave that in.
Cut
Leave it
my
in.
cable.
Cut
my life into pieces. This is my.
That was crazy.
Just keep in mind, brand managers, CEOs, when you're doing your growth strategy, just keep in mind your brand equity that is existing, and don't lose too much of it when you're expanding outwards. Have a strategy that can be shared and adopted by other people outside of the market that you're already in, but don't forget about the people who brought you there in the first place. There's an expression that I love, which is dance with who brought you.
I love that.
All right. Last topic.
Segue.
Carolina.
Yeah.
The floor is yours.
The floor is mine.
The table is yours.
I'll take it. So my topic is about a recent film that has just come out. It's about Turning Red. Have we seen it? I know you have. I know you have.
This I did not have time to see it. No.
Then
I apologize.
that's fine. Let me give you a quick recap.
I did read a lot about it though.
You read a lot about
Yes,
it?
I read a lot about it.
Because there's a
yes.
lot going on with it.
Yes.
And I feel like no one is talking about it enough, in my opinion. I have a lot of love for this movie. So basically, for the viewers at home who have not seen Turning Red, it is about a 13-year-old Chinese-Canadian girl named Maylin Lee who is experiencing growing pains, you could say. She is dealing with a generational condition is not the right word, but a generational condition from her passed down from her ancestors that causes her to turn into a giant red panda at the expression of pretty much any emotion. This is inopportune for her because she is a 13-year-old girl, and her favorite boy band is coming to Toronto, and she needs to see them, but alas, she is a giant red panda sometimes, and she can't help that. So I think at its heart, this movie is a really cool coming-of-age story for a preteen girl. It's about friendship, it's about family, and it's about like staying true to who you are, which I think is just like so important. I love this movie a lot. I have a lot to say about this movie. Michael has heard me give like a really in-depth review of this movie.
And I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Thank you. It was like really, okay, I have a lot to say. But I think this movie is important to talk about just in its, like in the scope of diversity, because it has made a lot of like benchmarks for like inclusivity within Disney, which is like really cool to see. I obviously cannot speak as to how it represents the Asian community, but I do think it is really cool to have an Asian-led story in the Disney Pixar sphere. And just objectively, there are a lot of firsts for Disney in this movie. Like, did you know the first character with diabetes appeared in Turning Red? They had the little diabetes patch. I don't know what they're called, but they're there. You look like you were about to say it.
No, I thought I knew.
Oh.
Because I read about it last night, but I know it's like an insulin.
Yeah.
It just sticks under their skin and gives them insulin throughout the day.
So there are I think 2 characters with like insulin patches in the movie, which was so cool. And then they featured a lot of Middle Eastern characters. So there was a sick man. I'm not saying like sick dude, but like SIKH, a sick man, and he was featured as like the bodyguard like 4 times throughout the movie. And like there were people wearing like turbans and hijabs, and it was like so cool to see it because I feel like it was like normalized in a way. It was as if like these characters were just a part of the world building. They weren't like drawn like they weren't drawing attention to it like, oh my god, look guys, look who we have, diversity, look at us, we're Disney, we're doing so good. Like it felt like authentic and like true to the world that it was creating, which was like so cool to see. And like, well, I do think this movie like is great in all these remarks. I do think it is such a shame that it went to streaming.
Please.
So like think of like the latest grossing movies from like 2022. You think of like Spider-Man, Batman, like Scream. You think of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. All of these have had theatrical releases and are, again, like IP content for a lot of these studios. And then in terms of like Pixar, the past 3 releases were, I think, Soul, Luca, and this one, Turning Red, which were all sent to streaming, which I think sends like a really like negative connotation to viewers that like, I don't know, like an original story like Turning Red or like Luca with like no like intellectual property material in it is like somehow less worthy because it's going free straight to streaming. And it reinforces the idea that you should only go out to the movie theaters to see something that you already know. And I think this is really interesting because like bringing up the next Pixar movie to go to the theaters is Lightyear, which is obviously based off Toy Story and Buzz Lightyear. And I feel like Lightyear's success is inevitable, and I feel like Turning Red didn't get the opportunity to, which brings up like the conversation of like, because Turning Red is like talking about, it's bringing up matters of diversity, and it is in like making like strides for Disney as a company, does that like take away from their strides by the way if they're not like fully promoting this movie to their best ability, not amplifying the voices of a marginalized community? Like, I just think it's very interesting to think about. What do you guys think?
So it's funny that you say the about the thing about the streaming and it going straight to streaming. Did you know that the movie that won picture of the year or best picture?
Oh, best picture, Coda.
Coda. That's
Apple
a
TV Plus.
streaming only movie.
Well, technically, I looked this up actually. But like in order to be nominated for the Oscars, you have to have like a 1 week engagement at a theater. Like I think in the Los Angeles area. And so that's what they did for Turning Red. Before you release it on streaming services, it has to have a theatrical release, even that small one. So they did the 1 week in LA and then straight to streaming.
Right, but I mean that's obviously that's a more limited release. But you know, for the greater market though, it's a streaming only movie. But yeah, Coda won Best Picture, so I think the future is certainly, at least with the Academy, like with critics, future's bright for streaming only movies. Not to take it too far away from Turning Red, but this reminds me of a conflict in games a while ago, when games were beginning to be downloadable from the internet and not just on physical discs. Games that were only downloadable were seen as lesser quality games than discs. The phrase "pretty good for a downloadable game" was around all the time. Now, all games are downloadable, and digital sales are going exponentially up. Physical sales going down. It's becoming a niche thing. I see the same thing happening for movies. So I think to set some positivity on the future of Turning Red and movies like Turning Red, I think there's the situation might be better, hopefully, for movies like that. I just saw here that it broke opening like premiere records for Disney Plus. More people saw Turning Red when that came out than anything else on Disney, which is pretty crazy because it's a new property, completely new. It's not Black Widow, it's not Mulan, it's not any other shit. It's a brand new movie, with an important, genuine message. So in terms of that angle, the viewership count and how much exposure it gets, I think there's something positive to look forward to in the future. Like there's movies like these, streaming only movies. I think very soon we're going to see that whatever stigma they had when they first started being a thing, I think that's going to be shed pretty soon.
Yeah, I think that is a thing that will happen. But as for now, I think theatrical releases are really boost, and I'm not talking about sales. I'm talking about like whether a movie's talked about a lot, and I think that's, to Carolina's point, like the movie hasn't been talked about as much. I think it is being talked about, but I feel like it's like a muffled version of what would have been talked about, just because it's so controversial as is, and mostly not because of the diversity so much as because of the subject matter of, showing puberty and like having a lot of topics not really implied but more explicit in the movie, which I think is a real win for Disney. But I think in today's world, even if some people think that, going to the theater is, a dying trend, which I can't say for sure because it seems like it's coming. And we talked about that in our Lost video.
Lost video?
You're right. What am I talking about?
What?
We talked about like the Batman, and is it bringing back theater goers, and I think just the movies are a different experience, and I think it's a social activity, and I think that's why people talk about it, and like people will go see the movie twice. Sure, it's probably even more accessible to watch a movie more than once on streaming platforms, but the chances are you're probably watching it alone, at least one of the times, and like you have to like go search. I remember, well, I'll finish my sentence because I realized this is, people are just listening to my voice, but like you have to go search for somebody is what I was trying to say. You have to search for somebody to talk about it with. And what I was gonna say is Carolina, as soon as she finished watching it, she was like, Michael, have you seen Turning Red? And I'm like, no, I haven't. And she was like, well, watch
I
it
annoyed him into
right
watching it.
now because I need to talk about it with somebody. And like, I feel like that's, you know, that's just a product of how controversial the movie was, you know, like, or like how much was in it. I don't think other movies have that drive to, you're not going to like say, hey, have you seen Luca? And for just to, you know, stay on topic of Pixar and streaming. Like, yes, it was a fantastic movie, in my opinion, but it wasn't, like, anything groundbreaking in terms of, like, subject matter. And so I think, you know, had that movie been in theaters, people would have talked about it more. And just in general, movies deserve that, like, public discourse that comes with seeing it in the theater. I think it becomes an event. And then I think putting it on streaming is a good way to, like, continue the conversation, you know, like, kind of how, like, what HBO Max movies, or I should say like Warner Brothers movies are doing, you know, with like Suicide Squad and the Batman. They're all coming back to HBO Max, I think, after going to the theater.
And I think on like that point, like I think the future for streaming is bright, but we're still in a transitory, like, I don't know if transitory is a word, but we're still in a transitory like phase. Okay. Like we're still transitioning from the theaters to streaming. So I think there still is a heavy emphasis on the theater going experience. And I don't know, I just feel strongly, like with Encanto, for example. Encanto had a theatrical release. It wasn't Pixar, it was just Disney, but it had a theatrical release. And I feel like that period of time when it was in theaters gave enough people who wanted to go see it time to talk about it and like hype it up almost. And for the people who were like, oh, I'll just wait for it to come on streaming, there was like an incubation period where people would be like, oh, well, I want to see it because I've heard other people talking about it. Whereas Turning Red, it was just straight to release. And like, I want to take like back to like Black Widow. When Black Widow was released, I know a lot of people who did not want to see it because they would have to pay $30 on like premiere.
Yeah,
that is
a whole other conversation. But it's like there's still a lot to be like developed with streaming, and I think just because of like the importance in subject matter and like representation, like I think like as a young girl, I needed this movie just as like a form of like self-expression and like verifying like, oh, it's okay to be who you are, like inside, like you don't have to like listen to anybody else. Like I think it's such a really inspirational message for people anyone, boys and girls going through like the weird puberty middle school years. And I don't know. I think there's just a lot to be said with that movie. And I think Disney isn't doing that movie its due diligence and not doing its duty by giving it as big of an audience as it can.
Do you think that it was that the depiction of middle school girls and the friendship and the chemistry that they had, is that accurate to your middle school experience?
Entirely accurate to me. I loved them. Like I had a diverse like kind of friend group. And I think that's important to me because I kind of grew up in like kind of like a white like county area. So I thought it was like very unique that all of my friends were like ethnically diverse in some way. And just I drew many cinematic parallels to my own life, which may explain why I like it so much. But I don't know. I think it's just healthy to see like girls who are like really excited about something, and like bands like the central boy band of this film, Four Town, like.
There's 5 of them. When I saw that there was 5 of them,
in
like, I was reading about it. Oh, Four Town. Okay, it must be 4. And then I saw a picture and there was 5. I was like, what?
They say that in the movie.
They do talk about that in the movie.
They do. It's really funny.
I want to know. Like, I want to know in the lore which one of them like
well,
is
there's
left.
2 Errands. So
that's another thing that I want to talk. And I apologize. It's a little off topic.
No, take over the topic.
But I just think the humor. I was laughing so hard, and it's not even wit. There's wit in the movie, but like it's more so like how dramatic they make certain scenes. Definitely. And how, you know, the contrast between. One of the things that I love about movies in general, or TV shows that are, you know, dramatic, are when there are elements of humor in it, because I think it really juxtaposes the dramatic elements and really hits home. Now, I feel like Pixar movies are funny, but you know, there are other movies, you know, other dramatic films that like touch, especially on like, you know, tough topics like say puberty or something, that maybe, or maybe that's not the best example, but like certain hard topics to talk about are like in this dreary kind of like sad and like heartbreaking tones, and it's just, I don't think that's as effective. So when you see it in this context of like, yeah, it's still sad. I mean, there's some really heartbreaking scenes. Like there's like a scene where Malin is in bed in, oh, I apologize, I'm always so far from the mic. Where Malin is in her red panda state, and she's in a room that's empty because she's destroyed her other room.
Because she's a giant red panda.
Correct.
So she's destroyed the furniture.
Right, as one does.
Yeah.
And she hears her, not to spoil the movie, but she hears her parents talking about the condition, and she starts crying, and like things like that. Like they really hit home because
she's like, I'm a monster. I can't control it. Like, yeah.
And it's like it's juxtaposed with the humor in the movie, which is like really good humor. Like it's really funny. And mind you, the movie takes place in 2002, which I think
very
is
important.
Very cool.
I love that. I love that. Just I'm sorry.
Yeah.
They did such good theming around it too, and just bringing in like back to nostalgia. I wasn't alive for the 90s, but I'm like nostalgic for the period of like boy bands and like Tamagotchis and all the fun stuff. Oh, I love it.
Yeah, because you grow up in like the shows that you're watching, like Full House reruns, Friends reruns, things like you grow up like idolizing. You grow up watching celebrities, actors in roles who grew up in the 90s, grew up in the early aughts, who were old, so like you're idolizing these
those aughts.
Yeah, those aughts.
Those damn aughts.
Shoot, I was totally gonna talk about something and out of my head.
All I remember was Full House.
It came right off the top.
It slipped off the top of my head.
Yeah.
Not in the
roll credits.
Roll the audio credits.
Well, this has been off
the top. Provided by Cox Cable, Cox Cablevision, HE Buddy, and but I see that
Get me off. Get me off this pod. Get me off of it.
No, but I think there's so much more to talk about this movie.
There
like
is.
It's so diverse. And we talked about this, Carolina. Like
we did.
We talked about body type as well.
Oh my gosh, this. Let me. I have a whole like dissertation planned for this.
Go for it. Yeah.
Michael, this is gonna be very similar to what I texted you. So in the life cycle for like a female in animation, you have like a skinny child and like a curvy adult, right? So you start off with the characters like Riley from Inside Out, Violet from The Incredibles, even the girl from Luca. She was pretty skinny, flat, and then any sort of like roundness is used as like humor. They're the fat funny character. Oh my gosh, look at them, ah ha ha ha. But then as they grow older, you have to like think like, oh, how do we like make the audience understand that this character has grown up? You just give them curves because, oh man, women are supposed to have curves, but they have to be curves in the right places. And Disney can't really get away with just giving every character huge boobs. So they have to give them a huge ass instead. And that's where you get your Mrs. Incredibles, the Pixar dump truck. It's actually proven. Like they've like you can look this up. Like they can't give them boobs. So they were just like, okay, we just got to give them a butt instead, I guess. And that's how like...
Oh golly. Who gives...
Oh golly.
Oh golly. But the thing is, it's so it's so interesting to know, like the curves have to be in the right places or else they're not desirable. But in Turning Red, all of the four of the main like of May's friends, they're all designed differently. And they're all designed in like, this one's skinny and tall, this one has curves, but this one's just round. Like her friend Abby is literally just like a circle. She's just like round. Yeah. And like they're not treated differently for their sizes. It's just they're just them. And all of the characters, I think, have like a really interesting design, like in a way that's not like sexualized or like objectified in anything. That's like, oh, look at all of these different types of bodies on children because we all exist differently. That like, I don't know, like it's just so cool to see like different representation for all these different like sizes. Soon like you are normal. You don't have to be this like one specific stereotype. I just hit my mic. But like, and you don't have to be this one thing. You can exist like in multitudes, I guess, and it's okay to do that. I don't know. I love the character design for these girls. Ugh.
I think real quick, I was just gonna say, like, I think what's really cool about this movie is that it seems so real in
Yeah.
terms of what the experience was like in middle school. Because, like, obviously, I grew up as a middle school boy, which is different than a middle school girl's experience. But
A little bit different.
in a lot of ways. But I will say that you still have that messiness and
Exactly.
the crudeness and the just kind of like you're so afraid of embarrassment, but you do so many embarrassing things, and all of that is kind of like featured there. And yet Pixar is known for its kind of escapism and kind of taking us away from reality.
Yeah.
And somehow in this movie they managed to do both.
Yeah. Like, look at like all the past Pixar movies. Like, none of them feature humans, pretty much.
Yeah.
Like,
It's like starting.
Yeah,
like
it's starting.
beginning.
And I just, I don't know.
Starting with Coco.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think what we all desire is just genuineness. You know, like seeing things that are genuine to what we've experienced, what we live, and then hearing stories that are coming from a genuine place, from somebody. I'm glad. That's why I asked you. You know, how accurate is this to your experience in middle school? Because if the fact that you find it it is spot on, then that success for the movie, because it was able. The director has never met you unless she has.
I don't know.
Right?
I would love to be her close personal friend. If you're watching, please reach out. I have a lot of thoughts about this movie, and I'm its biggest supporter.
She's never met you, but she's able to connect with your experience, and it it's not just diversity for diversity's sake. It's genuine. It's coming from a genuine place, and I think when it comes to representation, all this, like that is what best pushes the message, because when you have diversity for diversity's sake, then it detracts from the message. You don't want a utopia. You want what's real. You want
Exactly.
you want reality, and this is what's really happening. I mean, I think of in thinking of the topic of people, not the controversy about this being about puberty. Some of the best movies that are thought of really fondly, thinking of movies like The Sandlot, like The Goonies, and shows more recent like Stranger Things. One of the things that people loved about those properties is that they were genuine about the depiction of how boys react with each other. Like, kids at that age, they're cursing all the time. Like, I was always cursing with my friends. Mm-hmm. That is how I interacted with my friends. And when I see movies or shows or whatever that are depicting like a more kid friendly version, I'm like, even I, like, as a kid watching things, I'm like, that's not how that's how we act around adults, not how I act around my friends. So this movie, obviously made by adults, but it's speaking to children, and sometimes, much to adults' chagrin, children are doing things that you're not aware of. We're going out and we're cursing all the time. We're getting into misadventures. We're doing weird things, like that you don't even. There's stuff that I've done that my parents never know, adventures that I've gone on with my friends.
Yes, to enlighten us. What kind of things, Anthony?
What kind of adventures,
This
Anthony?
is a safe space.
Please tell us. Elaborate.
Just a smidge.
So these properties, I mean, these are the successes. So let's there's a lot of people who Goonies, Sandlot, all of the stuff,
Nostalgic.
nostalgic. It's revered because it's genuine. People love its genuineness. Let's not develop a double standard with what we want to be genuine.
Well, I need to go back to The Sandlot, to The Goonies. Like, into even Stranger Things, you notice a common thread of these, and that they are male-centered.
Right.
And I think a lot of the controversy from Turning Red comes around the fact that it is woman-centered.
Mm-hmm.
It is centered around a girl experiencing things. It is discussing menstruation and periods, which is awkward, and not many people want to talk about it. They physically show pads in the movie. Like, that is a main, like, folk. They're like, you forgot your pads. And, like, it is hilarious. And, like, as a girl, I think that shit's hilarious. I think it's so funny. Because, like that's what I went through,
Mm-hmm.
Like, I went through the weird awkwardness of, like, that phase. And it's really cool to, like, have, like, something that just happens to my body just, like, said, like, it's not weird you know, and like it's treated as like it's a taboo thing, but it's like it's not. Everyone goes through it, you know.
Yeah, and another thing that like is important. I mean, just taking from, you know, the boys' perspective. Like, I grew up, not obviously, but I grew up with a sister and a mom, and I knew about periods from an early age. I knew, you know, that was the time of the month where my sister would have mood swings, or, you know, I'd hear a lot of terminology about tampons and pads, and, you know, like even nastier stuff like mucus and blood and all that. And that stuff never, and it's crazy because like I believe a period in it of itself is a euphemism because it's like replacing menstrual cycle, I believe, or menstruation. But you know, like there's like a lot of like, there's like this desire to evade the topic. And I think it's important for young boys to hear about it too, especially in that era, because if girls are experiencing mood swings, you know, and they're in an environment with boys, you know, and the boys are gonna like start calling them crazy, or like, you know, like this is why a lot of people say like really like sexist things about like women being too emotional. It's like, well, because you never had an education on the menstrual cycle, you know, like if you understood kind of like what women went through or go through with that. And I think like that's important. Like I grew up with that, and I still think it's important for me to have seen this movie and like understand more from the girl's perspective, because I'll never know. Anthony and I will never know, but I think it's important for young boys especially to be brought up normalizing this type of thing. And I think parents who are taking away, you know, movies like this are doing their both girls and boys like a disservice.
Mm-hmm. Very slay answer.
Carolina.
Yes.
Let's bring let's bring this topic home. Okay, let's land it.
Mm-hmm.
What do you want? The movie industry. What do you want? What do you want? Decision makers, for brands, for movies, etc. What do you want these decision makers to take away from the Turning Red experience?
I think Turning Red is a huge success. I think that the movie industry should take away that stories like this do work. They do resonate, and they will be profitable, and they will find their audiences. And I just heavily encourage, please keep telling stories like this. Please keep telling stories that you think may not find an audience, that may be a bigger risk for you. Like, you don't have to rely on your stupid IP all the time, even though sometimes it is good. I did like the Incredible sequel, but
it's random.
I just wanted to say, but like I don't know. I just want to see more authentic, more genuine stories, more representation, but also don't do it for the sake of diversity. Actually, give it its due diligence. Like, spread it out to the world. You like, especially Disney. They have a responsibility as one of the industry leaders. And I think that whatever they do, if they are amplifying the voices of smaller communities, then everyone else will follow suit. And I think in order to have like a culture, just at the largest macro scale, that is inclusive of everybody, as we should all strive to be, then like the leaders have to take responsibility for it. They have to make the steps themselves, and they have to, you know, get out there and do the dirty work, even though it's not going to be liked by everyone. Like, Turning Red has a lot of controversy around it right now, but I think that's important because that causes conversation, and in conversation just moves us forward.
Beautiful. Great. That is The Plane Landed by Carolina Mangru.
Thank you.
Take risks.
Exits are located at the front of the plane, also the middle.
You do look like that with the headphones.
Really? Like a little boop?
Mm-hmm.
Carolina, are you active on social media? Where can people find you?
I am active on social media. You can find me on Instagram. It's my full name, at Carolina Mangru. But more importantly, I want you guys to follow the agency socials. We're at the agency at UF, or at the agency UF on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and TikTok. We'll be putting out some really great, fun content, and just like engage with us. You never know. If you send a DM to the agency, someone might respond to you. It might be me. I might say, hey. That's all I really have to say.
Michael, you active on social media. Where can people find you?
Oh, I'm so active on social media. Yeah, you can find me on Instagram and Twitter.
You're plugging your Twitter?
Oh, you're so right. Maybe I shouldn't. No, it's at Michael_AlexW21. That's Michael. For those of you who have not grown up with Michael Jackson, Michael Phelps, Michael Jordan, Michael Douglas, Michael Keaton.
Calm down.
Correct.
Michael Bublé.
Michael Bublé.
Michael Bubble. Oh, back to the beginning.
Yeah.
It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas. I have. Yeah, I think this podcast is enough for people to get me. If you want to read some of the things that I write, I do have a blog on medium.com /@AnthonyBonet for my writing. I post on there sparsely. I have some things about video games, video game business analysis, some short stories on there. I like writing fiction sometimes. And I'm a game developer. I run Game Developers Association at UF. Anthony-bonet.itch.io for some of the games that I've made. Small games. Check them out. Some of them are broken.
Very slay. We love to see it.
But, check them out if you want. And yes, as Carolina mentioned, please follow the agency at UF on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, LinkedIn.
I forgot.
Yes, YouTube. YouTube is where you can find the video version of this podcast. We are off the top. Remember that you can find the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts for the audio versions. And then once again on YouTube, the agency at UF. If you want to interact with the agency, again, find us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, LinkedIn at the agency at UF. We'll be posting more content on there. And if you ever want announcements for the next episode of the podcast, we'll always be posting the day before with a teaser clip. Alrighty.
What's the flow code?
This maiden voyage coming to port. Carolina Mangru, Michael Weinberg, thank you for joining me on this voyage. Of course. Thank you. This is what I love doing.
Excellent job, mate.
Oh, thank you.
Not a British accent, mate.
That's what I do.
Right at the very end.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Until next time. See ya.